Welcome to the Edge of Greatness podcast. The path to greatness is never linear and requires patience and consistency. Join us on our journey as we peel back the layers of success, searching for that elusive core. Each week we will explore a different component of greatness, utilizing experts who have traveled some part of the path that we are all on. We aim to uncover insights into the areas of leadership, coaching, performance, overcoming failure, the power of habits, and so much more. We are all on the edge of greatness. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Edge of Greatness podcast. Today I have an interesting question to ask you. I'll get to that here in a second, but if you haven't had a chance yet, go listen to the latest episode that I just released with John Gold. Incredible conversation, some incredible wisdom dropped, and for me it was a valuable conversation because it's going to reframe the way I approach failure, how I talk to my athletes about failure, how I teach overcoming failure, and how I use my words in a little more purposeful way of addressing failure. Because for me, I still think failure is valuable. I think you can learn and grow from failure, but there's a difference between stretching ourselves and being okay with failure and seeking failure, which we talk about in the episode. So if you get a chance, go check it out, go listen to it, and I think you can get a lot out of this episode. So for today, here's what we got. All right, I proposed a question on my Twitter at the end of March. It was a question of, would you rather be one of the best in the world at one thing or be incredibly good at many things? And it was an interesting question because it came back pretty balanced. It came back as one of those, a lot of people said many things, a lot of people said one thing. And so for right now, what I want you to do, if you haven't thought about this question, if this isn't something that's ever been asked of you, I want you to pause this episode right now. I want you to spend a little time thinking about what it is that you would choose in this situation. Would you choose to be great or one of the best in the world at one thing? Or would you prefer to be very good and skilled at many things? So, welcome back. Hopefully you gave that time to think about the area of which you believe. And I wouldn't mind if you get the chance to send me your responses, because I'd like to know kind of where you sit and why. Because I asked this question to a lot of people that same day that I posted it on Twitter, and I asked them that question, and then when they answered it, my big response was, why? And what I've found is a lot of people choose the great at one thing that requires being very good at many things. So let me explain for a second. So with me, I work with a lot of athletes. So I'm asking them specifically this question, and their response is obviously, I want to be one of the best in the world at XYZ. So this one conversation I had was with a volleyball athlete of mine, and she goes, well, I want to be one of the best in the world at volleyball. I want to be one of the best volleyball players in the world. And I looked at her and I go, okay, so you think the one thing is the way for you. That's what she was choosing, to be the best in the world at one thing. And I looked at her and I go, now think about volleyball for a second. Is there one thing about volleyball that would make you the best in the world? Is there one specific aspect of the sport that you could be the best at? Because again, it's being the best at one thing. Volleyball is a combination of many things, right? You have to be a good jumper. You have to be laterally quick. You have to have good hands if you're a setter. You have to have ability to hit the ball while you're in the air. You have to have the ability to pass a ball. That's many things I just listed, right? You can be the best hitter in the world, and yeah, you'll be on a team, I'm sure. But you're not going to play all the way around. You're not going to play defense for that team if you can't pass. Maybe you don't serve very well either, right? And again, not saying that you can't be the best in the world at one thing and then be decent at other things, but what I want people to understand is that the range that we choose to pursue and be good at collectively makes us excellent at other things. I think too often we think this very simple approach of, if I'm good at one thing, it'll lead me to this level. But, I'm recently reading a book. It's called Range. It's by David Epstein, and it touches on a little bit of this, and I think it's really interesting to think about is, does specifically focusing on one thing lead to success? Now, obviously in the case of like a Tiger Woods, which he talks about in the book, yeah, absolutely. The specificity that he started at an early age led him to be incredible. But there are many other examples of people who didn't specify early or who didn't choose a path early and still found excellence or greatness. And me personally, I think the ability to try and do many things well gives you a wide range of things you can tap into to create success and become excellent later. And that's the biggest thing to understand, is that if you pigeonhole yourself, if you lock yourself into doing one thing and only one thing well, yes, you might be successful in that one thing, but that one thing that you do doesn't necessarily lead you to future success in other things. When that one thing goes away, what then? I prefer to think that overall greatness and excellence is a combination of many things being brought together. You can't be, in my opinion, the best at one thing and be overall great. Pursue many things. Pursue excellence in many areas. You know, again, I think back to this book that I'm reading, and if you were to say the best in the world at math, so from day one, to the minute you started learning, from the first day of education for you, all you did was math. Math, everything. Every single day. But you neglected all other aspects, all other subjects in school. And you became the world-renowned, best in the world mathematician. But then a problem was presented to you, and it required a little bit of science. But you don't have science as part of what you can tap into. So you can do the math to solve this problem, but you don't understand the science that's necessary to create the solution. So your greatness is limited to one thing, where a person who was pretty good at math, pretty good at science, incredibly good at problem solving, and has this crossover between both worlds, can all of a sudden see the picture from a different perspective and go, oh, I have a solution, let's try this. And the same is true for sports, right? If you play different sports and you try different things, you develop different motor patterns and movements for each one. Each one's going to open up some part of your potential that you can later tap into to create success in the current sport you're playing. Kobe Bryant's a great example of this, because from all the stuff that I've ever read or seen on him is that he was a pretty darn talented soccer player. And he believes that his soccer skills and abilities is what led him to the footwork that he had as a basketball player. This is something that's similar. You know, you have these things that you learn doing other things to a high level that allows you success later on. So that's my personal belief. I think that the best way to become great and to succeed long term and to become an innovator down the road, and somebody that people go, man, this guy is special. He changed the game, or he created a new thing, or whatever it may be that you do. If you want to be that person who makes an impact and is seen as this level of greatness, I think that the range that we cover and things that we do opens those doors. You know, and for this question in particular, I think it's interesting because we think in terms of I want to be the best at one thing, but when we look deeper, that one thing requires being good at many things. So let's keep that in mind while we're starting to try to improve on stuff. How do we go about it? What are we actually trying to get better at? What pieces do we actually have to get good at to make the one thing that we want to achieve possible? All right? Let's start to look at from a different lens, from a different angle. Let's reshape the box. Okay? And keep pursuing excellence, guys. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing of all of this, is that I love it that people wanted to be great at one thing. I think that that's an awesome thing to want. But understand that to be great at one thing, there are many things involved. As always, guys, keep reaching for the stars. Fall flat on your face. Remember, whenever we fall, always get up. Thank you for joining us today on the Edge of Greatness podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and join us again next time as we continue to dig deeper into the key components of greatness. The path to greatness is never linear, so remember to keep pursuing greatness no matter what. Keep stretching your abilities, reach for the stars, and fall flat on your face. But no matter what happens, remember, whenever we fall, always get up. Until next time, I'm Charles Schultz, and this was the Edge of Greatness podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please take a moment now to subscribe, rate, and review our show. We are all on the edge of greatness.